Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hessison studio this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got a lot to get to. Everything looks like it's running fine. All right. First up, a comment from a viewer after Friday's show, actually sent on Sunday. The current administration is all about you are free to do as we tell you. Questioning the current administration makes you an enemy of the state. If I could advise former President Trump, I would say be more presidential. Show less New York wise guy, more of Reagan's clever comedy. Show more of the respect you have towards children and your wife. Turn Democrats' attacks into a clever, there you go again type joke. Of course, the famous line from Ronald Reagan, there you go again. And above all, keep safe and don't fall for any more of the Democrats' bait tricks. Yes, there's a lot to talk about this morning when it comes to, well, tomorrow is the vice presidential debate. Looking forward to that. Am I frozen? No, everything looks good. We're going to be talking about the vice presidential debate. Got some waves in. I forgot to mention that. First off, though, Chris Christopherson, the country music legend, has passed away at the age of 88. You may remember him from a remake of A Star is Born. The star was surrounded by his family, but no cause of death was given. 88 years old. Just 1 month before his death, the Golden Globe winner put his ranch on in Northern California on the market for $17.2 million. He announced his retirement back in 2021. If you recall, he even played in our area at the time. In 2021, statement issued by his manager revealed that he had slowly stepped back from the spotlight. So Chris Christopherson passing away at the age of 88. Okay, we've got a couple other, I guess, breaking news stories, if you will. We're going to talk about some endorsements that came in over the weekend for both Harris and for Trump. We're going to talk with Josie Sal here in just a little bit. She's an up-and-coming country music singer. But first, an update from someone we haven't heard from in a while. Yes, it's Super Mayor Tiffany Henyard. Now, I mentioned Tiffany Henyard. She's the mayor of Dolton, Illinois. And I know I always give this little disclaimer before I talk about her. The reason I mention it is it shows the importance of who you are voting for, to know who you are voting for. Tiffany Henyard, the scandal-plagued Democratic mayor of Dolton, appears to be facing a new disaster after a local report indicated she is being evicted from her home. Henyard, dubbed by residents as the worst mayor in America, and her boyfriend, Kamal Woods, owe more than $3,300 in rent on a home they've been renting in the 1460 block of South Harvard for the past 3 years. Henyard also reportedly refused to allow the property to be inspected. An attorney for Henyard told Fox 32 via text message that the claim is false and the couple has not missed any rent payments. Henyard, a self-proclaimed super mayor, has come under fire for extravagant spending on the taxpayers' dime, making national headlines for contentious town hall meetings with residents and city officials that escalated to requiring police involvement. If you recall, when they were going to audit the books, the town council decided that they want to audit and see how much she'd actually spent. She vetoed that audit. In April, police were forced to shut down a meeting due to safety concerns following chaotic exchanges between Henyard and the residents. In June, police officers broke up a scuffle between supporters and opponents of Henyard before it turned violent. On Tuesday, another out-of-control meeting unfolded in the Thornton Township, where Henyard also serves as Thornton Township Supervisor. Yes, she's not only mayor, she's the Thornton Township Supervisor. Township trustees called on Henyard to be more open about her lavish spending habits, leading Henyard to accuse them of attacking her. Quote, "This is what I mean about my board. It's a lot of hate, jealousy, and envy amongst them towards their supervisors." Former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot previously investigated Henyard for her spending habits in the village of Dolton, though there has been no investigation into her spending habits regarding the Thornton Township. Lightfoot's investigation into the town's financial situation revealed in a preliminary report that Dolton's general fund balance was $5.61 million back in 2022, But by May of 2024, the balance had dropped to a deficit of, ready for this, $3.65 million. Lightfoot also disclosed that Henyard used the Village credit card to make purchases on Amazon, Target, Walgreens, Wayfair, and other retailers. One jaw-dropping statement revealed that the embattled mayor had dropped $33,000 on one random day, January 5th, 2023, on Amazon. And of course, we talked about this in the past, that she spent of the town's money about $85,000 to throw a party that featured R&B singer Kiki Wyatt and rapper Jay Holiday last month. So there's an update on the super mayor. All right. Now, we've got some international stories we're going to get to. We also got so much here. I know depending on what outlet you go to, a lot of talk about Saturday Night Live this weekend. We're probably not going to dive into it, but some celebrities hopping on to tease both Harris and Trump. So we could talk about that. If you'd like, if you saw it, what did you think of the impersonations? But on the international front, yeah, we're going to move quick this morning. I can tell already. Israel strike kills a Hamas leader in Lebanon and 3 Palestinian leaders in Beirut. The terrorist group Hamas said an Israeli strike killed its leader in Lebanon on Monday, while another Palestinian terrorist group said 3 of its leaders were killed in a strike on Beirut, the first attack within the city limits. Hamas said its leader in Lebanon, Fatah Sharif Abu al-Min, was killed, along with his wife, son, and daughter, in a strike that targeted their house in a Palestinian refugee camp in the southern city of Tyre in the early hours on Monday. As Israel escalates hostilities against Iran's allies in the region, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine said 3 of its leaders were killed in a strike that targeted Beirut's Kola district. The strike hit the upper floor of an apartment building, according to Reuters. There is no immediate comment from Israel's military. Israel's recent, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, frequency, maybe, is the word to use, of attacks against the Hezbollah leaders in Lebanon and Houthi terrorists in Yemen have prompted fears that Middle East fighting could spin out of control. And there's a really good piece, and we're going to get to it here in just a moment before we go to break. But showing the failed response from this administration, meaning the Biden and Harris. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. But Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the nation on Saturday night, telling them that the killing of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah was a victory for Israel and a warning to Iran. And that happened over the weekend as well. That was a very big victory for Israel. Netanyahu, speaking in Hebrew, said that Nasrallah was not just a terrorist, but the terrorist responsible for the deaths not just of Israelis, but also many Americans and French citizens, among others. He said that the successful airstrike on Friday evening was a warning to Iran, the regime of the Ayatollah, and repeated a warning he delivered in a speech at the United Nations General Assembly. Whoever strikes us, we will strike them. And today, you know how true that is. It was very interesting. It was very Michael Corleone-esque. It was right after his speech with the United Nations, where, yes, groups did walk out. Right after his speech, there was the bomb that killed Hassan Nasrallah, the Hezbollah leader. Netanyahu added that Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar would be more amenable to a hostage deal now that he sees that Nasrallah is not coming in to save him. To those in the Middle East and the world terrorized by Iran and Hezbollah, Netanyahu said the message of Friday's attack was Israel stands with you. He noted that the attack was broadly a message to Israel's allies, without mentioning the United States. The Biden administration has been pushing for a ceasefire before that attack and reiterated that goal even while welcoming the elimination of Nasrallah. Netanyahu recounted the years since the October 7th terror attack when Israel's enemies noted that it was on the path to destruction. They understand how their hopes have been dashed. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that when we come back. I see that we got a lot of comments coming in, a lot of waves. Well, thank you. But according to... Oh, wait do you see how the media covered this, by the way? No, I don't want to give too much away. Let's take our first break before we run too late. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer.
How do I know if I have a case?
Call 844-292-6222 and consult with one of our attorneys to find out if the products you used are part of the lawsuit. Your eligibility will also depend on how often you use these hair products and your specific cancer diagnosis. If you regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. Call 844-292-6222.
How much will it cost to talk to an attorney?
There is no fee unless we win your case. Call 844-292-6222 for your free case review.
How many times have you tried to clean a stubborn mess but end up with no success? What you need is the all-new waterproof Ruby Horsepower, the new cordless and rechargeable power scrubber that cleans faster and easier, guaranteed. Watch, baked on oven grease is no match. It blasts away dirt and grime in no time. The power comes from our rotating brushes, spinning at 350 RPM. The incredible torque fights calcium, mildew, mold, and more. Take it in the kitchen, where it busts through caked-on crud, or outside and tackle tough tasks with ease. Get your Ruby Horsepower with 4 additional attachments, all for just $39.99. Great news! They're in stock and ready to ship. Due to high demand, only 2 per order. Order now.
Call 1-800-980-2344. That's 1-800-980-2344, or visit horsepowerscrubber.com. So call 1-800-980-2344 now.
Should be electric today.
The crowd, the atmosphere, this is what makes it special.
The student body are out of their mind. You want a piece of us?
This is what we do. Here we go. Touchdown. Wow.
Sensational.
Big noon kickoff, Saturday.
As you can see, we're working on the Sky Cam. There it is, not quite set up. As you know, we got hit by lightning, we believe, and the roof cam has been out of order since, so we're working on it, and now it's got a beautiful view of Marcus Street here in Corning as we broadcast live from the Hasselson studio. A comment from Ken in Horsehead said, "I'm confused. Can you help me understand? Iran's leaders hate America, but the current administration has eliminated sanctions and released frozen assets, allowing them to fund terrorists who attack Israel and may be infiltrating America. We haven't put sanctions back in place and assets refrozen. Why haven't they been? Excuse me. Iran has threatened Trump's life. Why did we protect Iran's ambassador to the UN and tell Trump he had to scale down his rally instead of telling Iran that we can't protect their ambassador?" That's a great question. "Iran hacked the Trump campaign computers and gave the info to the Harris campaign. Why didn't our cyber experts retaliate against Iran to send a message that cyber attacks on America will not be tolerated? Americans have been held hostage by Hamas, a terrorist organization funded by Iran, and the administration hardly mentions it. Why haven't we tried to get them out?" That's a great question. And finally, some reports are currently saying that Iran may only be a month or two from having a nuclear weapon. Why does it appear that America is doing nothing to deter it? Yeah, quite the opposite. If you look at the money that we've spent, there was that statement quite a while ago, we mentioned it on the show, where Biden didn't want, this is when Biden was still running for president, and he didn't want any type of issue with Iran, even telling allies, don't mention their nuclear weapons, keep that kind of quiet. We don't want to have any type of pushback. They even say that he was upset about the airstrike that killed Nasrallah because Iran did not inform it until the operation was in progress and appeared to have strung the White House along about a ceasefire. But they realize, when I say they, Israel realizes that they cannot tell America without America blabbing, for lack of a better word. For instance, they would not tell us about the pager bombs. Now, Biden did release a statement saying Hassan Nasrallah and the terrorist group he led, Hezbollah, were responsible for killing hundreds of Americans over a 4-decade reign of terror. His death from an Israel airstrike is a measure of justice for his many victims, including thousands of Americans, Israelis, and Lebanese civilians. The strike that killed Nasrallah took place in the broader context of the conflict that began with Hamas's massacre on October 7, 2023. Nasrallah, the next day, made the fateful decision to join hands with Hamas and open what he called a northern front against Israel. The United States fully supports Israel's right to defend itself against Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, and any other Iranian-supported terrorist group. Just yesterday, I directed my Secretary of Defense to further enhance the defense postures of U.S. military forces in the Middle East region to deter aggression and reduce the risk of a broader regional war. Ultimately, our aim is to de-escalate the ongoing conflict in both Gaza and Lebanon through diplomatic means. In Gaza, we have pursued a deal backed by the UN Security Council for a ceasefire and the release of hostages. In Lebanon, we have been negotiating a deal that would return people safely to their homes in Israel and southern Lebanon. It is time for those deals to close, for the threats to Israel to be removed, and for the broader Middle East region to gain greater stability. Now, did you see how the New York Times, just to show you a little bit about what we're dealing with, sorry, my level's a little off, what we're dealing with when it comes to kind of this anti-Israel sentiment, the New York Times faced widespread criticism and mockery after it published an article critics said tried to soften the image of slain Hezbollah founder Hassan Nasrallah, claiming the terror leader who advocated for the annihilation of Israel was a champion of equality for all religious groups in the region. The article titled, "Protesters Mourn Nasrallah's Death Around the World," and it was published on Saturday without a byline. No one wanted to put their name on it. Keep that in mind. Heaps praise on Nasrallah as a gifted orator who maintained that there should be one Palestine with equality for Muslims, Jews, and Christians. Nasrallah fervently believed in the destruction of the Jewish state, and his organization carried out numerous horrific attacks on Jews around the world. So, gifted orator, this is how you describe a terrorist. Gifted orator and a champion for equality for all religious groups. Okay. The article described how Nasrallah was beloved by Muslims, in part for providing, quote, social services in Lebanon. Nasrallah, 64, was killed in a massive aerial bombardment by Israeli forces in Beirut on Friday. He co-founded Hezbollah in 1982, becoming the terror group's sole leader by 1992. So, wanted equality for all religions and a gifted order. Now, CNN said the Biden administration fears Iranian attack and is working with Israel on defenses, according to U.S. officials. The Biden administration is worried that the attack from Iran is being planned in the wake of Israel's killing of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah and is working with Israel on defenses, according to a U.S. official. Joint defenses are being prepared to ward off an attack with changes in U.S. military posture. The Biden administration spearheaded a multinational defense of Israel in mid-April when Iran launched over 300 drones and missiles at Israel in response to the Israeli bombing of senior Iranian Revolutionary Guard officers in Syria. We got a little bit more on this. I don't want to run too late. Look at all these waves and comments coming in. There's a couple opinion pieces on this. Now, Senator Tom Cotton over the weekend called Kamala Harris the Iranian Ayatollah's, quote, hand-picked candidate. In an interview with CBS News' Face the Nation, Cotton, who sits on the Senate Armed Services and Intelligence Committees, expressed strong opposition to any ceasefire or de-escalation efforts in the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. Noting that Israel has dealt a huge blow to Hezbollah's leadership, he argued that now is the time for the U.S. to back Israel in fully neutralizing the group's remaining capabilities. Quote, "I'm not sure that Israel's expanding the war so much as it is trying to end the war." I love that the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said numerous times, and obviously he's standing by it, that whatever anybody wants to say at the UN, the Biden administration, they're going to win this war. They are going to defend themselves. Iran has used Hezbollah's threat to deter Israel for years. Now is not the time for a ceasefire or to de-escalate, as Joe Biden and Kamala Harris want, said Tom Cotton, because they now have Hezbollah on its knees. The United States should help Israel drive Hezbollah to the mat, choke it out, and finish it off once and for all, insisting that we should let Israel win. If that's what Israel needs to do to eliminate the remnants of Hezbollah's leadership and its arsenal, then yes, of course. All of Hezbollah's leadership needs to be eliminated. just like all of its arsenal needs to be eliminated. Just like the United States needs to be much more forceful in attacking Iran's terror army in Yemen, where Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have had our sailors resting like sitting ducks on the Red Sea for months. When we finish mopping up all these terrorist proxies, that means Iran is once again totally exposed, and it can no longer threaten Israel, the United States, and our friends throughout the region. That's why we need to back Israel to the hilt and let Israel win, rather than continuing to make these feckless demands for ceasefires and de-escalations, as Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have been doing for a year now. He described this again, Tom Cotton. He described President Biden and Vice President Harris's approach as one of the appeasements, noting, quote, "From the minute Joe Biden and Kamala Harris got to the White House, there have been threats to Americans. Iran and its proxies have attacked our troops over 100 times, and we've barely ever struck back. There have been continued attacks on us. Again, just like we should support Israel in striking back against those terrorists, we should be striking back harder." But that's Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's policy. From the very beginning, they've appeased the Ayatollahs. Kamala Harris, for instance, opposed Donald Trump's strike that killed Iran's terror mastermind, Soleimani, back in 2020. Over the last 4 years, they've given away tens of billions of dollars in sanction relief, meaning the Harris and Biden campaign, or administration, I should say. They've looked the other way as Iran violates sanctions. They've continually put more pressure on on Israel than on Iran's terrorist proxy. That's why Kamala Harris is the Ayatollah's hand-picked candidate, and why the Ayatollahs are hacking into Donald Trump's campaign and trying to kill him. So to Ken's point there. So that's Tom Cotton. We've got more to talk about. Stay with us. We're just getting started. When we come back, we are going to hear, we're going to hear from Josie Sell. She's an up-and-coming, she's only 15 years old, up-and-coming country music singer. That's in a little bit. Oh, also, we've got an update. I forgot to mention this about Cuomo. Apparently, he's making some calls, letting people know that he is interested in running for mayor of New York City. Of course, Mayor Adams in some hot water as we speak. Governor Cuomo, former Governor Cuomo, looking to perhaps take that position. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. And, of course, the Trump campaign, the Harris campaign, all that, much more. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer.
How do I know if I have a case?
Call 844-292-6222 and consult with one of our attorneys to find out if the products you used are part of the lawsuit. Your eligibility will also depend on how often you use these hair products and your specific cancer diagnosis. If you regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. Call 844-292-6222.
How much will it cost to talk to an attorney?
There is no fee unless we win your case. Call 844-292-6222 for your free case review.
Whether because of discomfort, lack of mobility, your lifestyle, or occupation, you sit inactively way too many hours a day. Introducing Ellipse, the premium quality automatic seated exerciser that strengthens legs, increases mobility, and boosts circulation without physical strain or impact.
It is so quiet that none of my coworkers even know I'm using it.
Strengthen and tone your legs, increase your mobility, flexibility, and balance. Plus, stimulate healthy circulation.
My joints feel better, my knees feel better, my back feels better. It makes me feel stronger too.
Perfect for home therapy. Whisper quiet to use while you work.
My circulation is moving, I'm burning calories, and it makes me feel energetic.
Call now and order Ellipse, the seated exerciser that strengthens legs, increases mobility, and boosts circulation. Call and get upgraded to the Deluxe Bundle. Get the faster motor for 5 miles of steps per hour, the step counter, the sport mat, and wireless remote. Call now.
And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. There's our a little different view of our studio here, the Frankly Speaking Studios. Thanks so much for joining us. A little bit more here on Israel. The New York Post editorial board said, let's all give thanks to the Israeli Defense Forces for the operations have not only gutted Hezbollah, but at long last took out the thugs most responsible for the 1983 Beirut barracks bombing that slaughtered 220 Marines and 21 other U.S. service members. And I know many viewers have brought this up in the past, the 1983 Beirut barracks bombing. 7 U.S. presidents have failed to bring that basic justice. Bigger picture, Israel's steady flow of deftly targeted attacks have eviscerated Hezbollah's leadership and its rocket stocks and backfooted the civilized world's ultimate enemy in this conflict, the cabal that controls Iran. It also exposed the quote-unquote Western friends of Israel who still keep complaining and asking for a ceasefire or the creation of a Palestinian state. No, the barriers to Mideast peace are now, number one, the Tehran regime and its imperialist ambitions, and 2, the refusal to recognize that Israel can and will continue to exist in roughly its current borders as the world's only Jewish state. Israel's Arab neighbors have slowly been coming to accept the latter truth, their attention focused by the growing Iranian threat, their public stance concentrated by all the decades of anti-Israel propaganda they pushed before and after their military efforts failed. The Palestinian people are the prime victims of that propaganda, weaponized, deceived into thinking that Israel's success is the cause of all their problems. But their plight is only a sideshow, one that will only end as a consequence of a far larger regional settlement. Indeed, Mideast peace progressed by leaps and bounds in the Trump years, as Washington finally quit chasing the two-state solution and instead brokered accords between Israel and several of its Arab neighbors. Progress slowed to a crawl when the Biden team took over and re-embraced the two-state delusion. Plus, the even more fantastical Obama-ite obsession with reaching an end with the death to America Tehran regime. The Israelis, were horrifically shocked out of their own, much smaller, complacency last October 7th. They've convinced themselves Hamas was fully contained. As the IDF focused on destroying Hamas this last year, it held off from answering the thousands of missiles Hezbollah shot into Israel, even as the Jewish state's diplomats warned that action would come if the terrorists remained on the northern border. In defiance of the 2006 UN resolution, they supposedly guaranteed they'd be removed. Exactly what's next in the upcoming weeks and months is profoundly uncertain, but at least the nonsense that has animated Biden-Harris policy towards the Middle East stands exposed as the poppycock it's always been. That's from the New York Post. Another piece from the New York Post says, with Biden administration still trying to appease Iran, Israel goes it alone and scores a huge victory. This is actually coming from Tablet Magazine, reprinted, I should say, by the New York Post. Wars are won by killing the enemy. Above all, those who inspire their people to kill yours. Killing Nasrallah not only anchors Israel's victory in Lebanon, but reestablishes the old paradigm for any Western leaders who take seriously their duty to protect their countrymen and civilization. Kill your enemies. All right, we're going to move along there. That's our international update. Thanks for joining us this morning. We've got a lot more to cover. As you are aware, tomorrow is the vice presidential debate. So obviously tomorrow, Wednesday, we'll be focusing on the recap on Wednesday. Tomorrow we'll be focusing on the lead up. I'll give you some of the who, what, when, where, and why this morning so that you will be prepared for tomorrow. What are your thoughts? They're already trying to downplay it, and I don't know if that means, when I say they, the media, if that means that they believe that Vance could win. I guess Vance loves debating, and I don't know if you saw him over the weekend on a couple of rallies. He had a visit to I think it was a Pennsylvania diner we're going to talk about that did not go well for him or for the diner. We'll talk about that as well. Also, a little bit here about Harris and Walz in general. But as I mentioned, former Governor Andrew Cuomo is telling some of the power brokers, the kingmakers of New York City, that he's running for mayor if there's a special election called. Now, this goes to show you kind of his lust for power, right? Now, many people, and we had a few viewers saying this last week, that they didn't think he would take the demotion. And I would agree. I thought he wouldn't really seriously consider the mayoral run. But as one article had on Friday had said, that he must know he's going to win it if he gets in. Now, he did do some polling, but there's no doubt that he's not going to take any chances. He's not going to get in a situation where he loses, because if he, and I think it was Ken who said it last week, this can make him, popular again. In his mind, if he does a quote unquote good job for New York City as mayor, who knows? Maybe it's back to the governor's mansion. Former Governor Andrew Cuomo is telling city power brokers he will run for mayor of New York City should Mayor Adams be forced from office. Earlier this week, Cuomo met with attorney and longtime Brooklyn Democrat Frank Cedio and said he was in it to win it if Adams were to leave his post, a move which could trigger a nonpartisan special election. Cuomo has told several people, "I know he's running," said one insider familiar with the discussion. He also told real estate folks that he's running for sure in a special election. But Cuomo's plans are less certain if he has to face off against the incumbent. He's not determined if he's running in a primary if Eric Adams is in it. A second city power broker said Cuomo allies have been hitting him up to schedule a meeting, leaving him with the impression Cuomo was definitely running if there is a special election. Cuomo has also reached out to high-profile real estate and construction honchos to tell them his plans. He is reportedly in talks with political consulting shop Mercury Public Affairs. Adams was indicted this week on federal bribery, conspiracy, and wire fraud charges, throwing his future into doubt. The mayor has vowed to stay in office, insisting he's the victim of a political hit job by the feds because he criticized their handling of the migrant crisis. With virtually universal name recognition in New York and a large war chest of campaign cash left over from his days as governor, Cuomo would be well positioned for a special election, one that would be quick and chaotic. But there's something about, and we'll have to ask Joe Sempolinski, he's on the show, former congressman, current assembly candidate, and the Steuben County Republican chair. Joe Sempolinski is going to join us on Thursday. We'll have to ask him how that works, because I know that the money that Cuomo has is not as easy to use as it may seem. Just because he has a war chest, it may not translate into a run for mayor. But I've got to find out more about that. Governor Cuomo has spent a lifetime in public service fighting and delivering for the people of New York and will do whatever he can to help. That said, the speculation is premature as Governor Cuomo believes Mayor Adams is entitled to due process, said longtime Cuomo spokesman Rich Azzopardi. Cuomo was forced from office in the wake of a sexual misconduct scandal. You know all that. And as we were talking about last week extensively, you still have the nursing home scandal, which I know Saturday Night Live even ridiculed or mocked over the weekend, mocked his response. And the nursing home tragedy, I think, and I know someone said it on the program last week, that it makes him it really should end his political career as we know it. He should never be able to run again just because of what I would argue is one of the worst, if not worst, decisions made during all of the COVID pandemic. Now, New York City Jewish voters are ready to rally for Andrew Cuomo for mayor, and that's what advocates say. And Eric Adams is, quote, toast. Cuomo is a moderate with a deep history with the Jewish community and a long record of fighting for issues we care about, combating anti-Semitism and strong support of Israel, a source said. The Jewish community is very anxious for Cuomo to jump into the race. A lot of us will jump in for him, said Jewish organizers who requested anonymity, adding he has not discussed a candidacy with Cuomo. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, Josie Sale will be our guest. She is an up-and-coming country music singer, just I think 15 years old. So we'll hear from her in just a few minutes. So stay with us.
Hesselson's Hot Spring Hot Tub Sales Event is going on now. New technology, cleaner water, easy to use, hot water made simple. Hesselson's, your locally owned and operated hot spring hot tub store since 1955, is offering huge incentives on their saltwater hot tubs, deluxe lifters and steps, Bluetooth music, freshwater IQ. Plus, 0% interest-free financing options. Come to Hesselson today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselson's Hot Spring Saltwater Hot Tub. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
If you or one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer.
How do I know if I have a case?
Call 844-292-6222 and consult with one of our attorneys to find out if the products you used are part of the lawsuit. Your eligibility will also depend on how often you use these hair products and your specific cancer diagnosis. If you regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. Call 844-292-6222.
How much will it cost to talk to an attorney?
There is no fee unless we win your case. Call 844-292-6222 for your free case review.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking, talking to the people that affect your life, that affect all of our day-to-day lives. This is something you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of news, local, regional, national, really the things that affect you. And I think you'll be glad that you tuned in. So think of it as radio on TV. Frankly Speaking, live, 2 hours long, starting at 6 a.m. on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is history. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We're broadcasting from the Hesselson studio, and I'd like to welcome Josie to the show. Good morning.
Morning. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I want to talk about your career, which is kind of crazy to say when you're 12 years old to have a career.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. I look at pictures all the time. I'm like, am I sure this is real? I'm like, yeah. Mom, you didn't like just make these, right? I was like, this is real, right? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, no.
It's so cool. We're going to talk about your new single in just a second. But how does it work, trying to start this career in music as 12 years old? How does that work with school and responsibilities?
It's crazy, especially because I'm cyber schooled. Like, it's not like my mom homeschools me or anything. So It's like I'm doing everything.
Yeah.
All together. And I mean, it's not like my parents can do music for me. So it's like I'm literally doing everything at the same time. It's actually... People ask me how I balance it, and I'm like, I actually have no idea.
No.
This is just all, I kind of just have to get it done.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you have no choice.
Yeah, and it really depends on the week, because this week, for instance, is packed.
Okay.
Jammed. It's like back-to-back everything.
Yeah.
And, like, Friday I have a show here in Pittsburgh, and then we drive to Nashville Saturday, and then Sunday I have a show in Nashville.
Wow.
So it's like boom, 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 go, 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 go,
yeah.
go. And pretty much like with school, I just get it done when I can. I mean, I'm right where I'm supposed to be, but sometimes I'm like, I don't think it's done. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Sure.
So like sometimes I'll do like an hour a day. And then, or sometimes I'll have to do like 6 hours because I won't have any time.
Oh, sure.
So it's just like whatever. And my school, it's not like hours, it's based on assignments.
Okay.
So it could take me an hour for an assignment. It could take someone else like 20 minutes.
Sure.
It's really just depends. So it's not like I have to put in like 4 hours a day.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
That would work.
Right.
But,
it doesn't sound it, but it sounds like you have travel too, where you can do some of your work when you're traveling.
Yeah, like when we had like our 8-hour car rides to Nashville, we always drive too.
From Pittsburgh, you said?
Yeah, from Pittsburgh to
geez.
Nashville. And it's not as bad as driving to Florida. It's
okay.
not as bad.
Okay.
But yeah, I get a lot of schoolwork done in the car.
Makes sense. And the new single is the classic. I mean, everybody knows Black Velvet. So what goes into picking a song, Black Velvet, that came out, probably 20 years before you were even born?
Yeah, I mean, well, I just found out it actually came out 13 years before I was born.
Oh,
It's
okay.
like, it's, I mean, I don't even know. People are like, you know, this was 13 years before you were born. And I was like, no, that's a new fact. Like, but I mean, I picked the song because so many people, they were like, Josie, you need to sing this. You need to sing this.
Yeah.
And I would get requested all the time. And I would listen to it. I had never heard of Black Velvet before. Like a lot of my friends haven't either. I'm like
Sure.
the one who introduced like it to them basically. But yeah, I mean, I had so many requests and then I put it on my playlist and I was like, it's too low for me. My voice wasn't low enough. And so I would listen to it every day. Not that I just like made myself listen to it. It was just
Right.
a song on replay because I loved it so much.
Oh,
And one day I was singing in the car to like, I was on AirPlay or CarPlay, and randomly I was singing it. My mom was like, wait, you can sing it. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I added it to all of my set lists and everyone loved it. And the first song that I ever learned was Falling in Love by Elvis Presley. So, and also the song also kind of like meant something to me because it was about Elvis, and I love Elvis. I listen to him all the time. So I mean, it was cool and everyone loved it, so I decided to cover it.
Well, so you mentioned Elvis, the greatest. Is that one of your biggest influences?
Probably. I mean, there's like a lot of people who I just listen to on a daily basis, and they're all oldies. Like I listen to the Beach Boys all the time.
Okay.
Like Otis Reading, like everyone. Those are all the time people I listen to. And then of course there's like Jelly Roll, Zach Bryan, Lainey Wilson. But my biggest influence is Billy Joel.
Okay.
That's my biggest influence. Yeah.
So that's an eclectic playlist. So your sound must be pretty unique.
I mean, I mean, I listen to so much older music. My brother's the one who got me into music, and we actually share playlists, and I'm pretty sure it's like 25 hours long.
Oh, wow.
It's so long. But yeah, I mean, we mostly listen to older classics.
Do you have a musically inclined family or just have the same playlist?
No, honestly, it's just me and my brother have the same playlist. It's not. No one in my family can sing.
Oh, interesting.
We have no idea where this came from. I was on Instagram Live, I was practicing yesterday, and someone was like, oh, can your mom sing us a song? I was like, what made you think my mom can sing?
That's funny.
And then I was like, I called her in, and I was like, Mom, come sing for them. And she was like, I don't sing. She was like, what are you talking about?
That's funny. So what makes you go into this avenue, to go into this profession, if you will, if you don't have a musical family?
I've always kind of been a performer, as like an entertainer, like my whole life. It was dance since I was 2. I've been a dancer since I was 2, competitive, and I would just do like Nutcracker and Spring Show. And then I decided to go into acting. Okay. And then I'm kind of glad in a way that COVID hit because I was supposed to go to Disney, and then COVID hit, that got stopped, and then during COVID, my parents were like, let's just get a house in Florida. Like, we're not going to school because we're quarantined.
Right.
Like, and so we got a house in Punta Gorda, Florida. And one of the first nights we were moving in, so random, we went to Fisherman's Village, downtown Punta Gorda. And my dad just randomly was like, because I was like, Dad, can I have money to go shopping? Because, you know.
Sure, like, of course. Yeah.
And he was like, no, just sit with the family. Like, come on, we're out at dinner. And I was like, okay, whatever. And he was like, but I'll give you $20 if you sing with the band.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, $20 is $20.
Right, why not? Of course.
It's like, I have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So the band at first said no, and then they said yes. And then I sang, and I caught the bug.
Oh, yeah.
I definitely got the bug, and I was like, well, the first thing that popped in my head was he gave me a mic at first, and then as I was singing, he handed me the better mic.
Okay.
And I had no idea what that meant, but I was like, this isn't coming out of me. I was like, what type of autotune did you put on this? I was like, oh my gosh. And then at the end of my dad was videoing because he was shocked. At first he wasn't videoing, but then people started dancing and all this stuff, and then my parents were like actually like they were flabbergasted that I was like good. And
that's funny.
I mean after that I was like, wait, is that coming from me?
Yeah, why not?
I was like, what?
Yeah.
And then after that I caught the bug, and that's really how it started. So it's not like my dream since I was a little girl was to be a singer. Like I thought I was definitely gonna be either an actor or a dancer, but I never ever knew that I was gonna be a singer.
So what is a typical show like that you do? Because I mean, I think it's amazing that on the 22nd you get to play Tootsies. Like, how historic is that, right?
I know, I'm so excited. The first time I went to Nashville was October.
Okay.
And it was Halloween weekend, which is so crazy that the Josie Awards fall on the exact same day that we got to Nashville. My first trip falls on the exact same day that we like drove in. And I think it's crazy. But it was my first time, and we were walking on Broadway. We didn't really know. My parents, I don't think, have ever been there.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So like we were walking on Nashville, and I was like looking around on Broadway, and I was like, oh, it's like a normal downtown, until I started walking into places, and I was like, oh my gosh, what is this place?
Yeah.
I was like, this is amazing.
It's so amazing there, isn't it?
And then I saw I saw Willie Nelson on the door at I saw like a picture of him playing in the corner. I was like, Mom. I was like, do you see this? And she was like, yeah, you didn't know this is like famous for like all these people? And I was like, well, I didn't know Willie Nelson was gonna be on the door.
Right.
I was like, I didn't know we were going here. So I'm really excited.
Of course.
And then, well, we just heard today that I'm gonna be singing on. Not only am I going to be singing on the main stage a couple songs.
Oh, wow.
But then I get a stage at Tootsie's for a little. I think I get like 45 minutes.
Oh, wow. How exciting is that? Yeah. Oh, best of luck. Congratulations. That's got to be, that's going to be an amazing experience.
Yeah, I can't wait. I was like, first time singing on Broadway, like as an actual show, and it's going to be at Tootsie's, and I'm really excited.
Oh, that's so cool. So I understand that you write some of your songs, right?
Yeah, I've co-written every song that I have.
Is that difficult? Because I always wonder when someone puts that out there, something that you've written that's kind of personal to you, is it difficult to play those in front of people, or are you just used to it at this point?
I think I wrote one song. I've never, like, again, this sounds like crazy, because when I was like 5 years old, I sang at my pap's wedding.
Okay.
But it wasn't good at all. But I just loved to sing, and I was like, I want to do something for Pap. So I sang at his wedding, and after that, not my Pap, but my grandpa passed away, and I would always write. I would always have a journal. But I wrote a song randomly. Like, I got out of the shower and I just started writing, and I was like, what am I doing? But now I look back at the song, and I played it one time in public, and I want to release a song about my grandpa, because like he was one who like got me into country music. Like, I listen to music all the time with him, and so, but I just can't get myself to sing it because that's just way too emotional for me right now.
Of course.
But all of my other songs are not like that at all. Even if it's like a sensitive subject, kind of, they're not that hard. But I want to write a happy song about my grandpa.
Yeah.
With like the other memories, but some, no, I like can't sing without crying, but some are just really easy.
You're used to it at this point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would you say the favorite part about this job is for you?
That's a hard one. That's really a hard one. Because I mean, I love traveling. That was like one thing. Like, me and my sister love traveling.
Yeah.
She's studying abroad in Italy right now.
Oh wow.
And obviously I love traveling, but also probably writing is probably a big part, because I've always loved to write. I've always written like little books and things, and but another one's probably performing. Performing is literally like one of the biggest things, because I love making people happy and I love entertaining. So it's
so you like every part of the job. Yeah, I was trying to think, is there anything else that's not included in those three?
I'm like, is there anything else?
Yeah, but no, that's how you know you got the right job, right?
Yeah.
If you like all of them.
Yeah, and everyone, I got this question earlier today. They were like, has it become a job yet?
Yeah.
And I was like, not really.
No,
no.
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 No, especially as you get ready to go to Tootsie's. Like, how would that be a job at that point, right?
I know. I mean, I'm like, wait, what part of it is a job?
Yeah. It's more like a hobby, except for a fun hobby.
Yeah.
Well, this is so cool. Where can people find out more, and where can they hear the new single Black Velvet?
So I'm on all music platforms.
Oh,
and
great.
All that's just under Josie Sal. And then all my social media, I have a website, I have Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all those things. It's all Josie Sal Music.
Okay.
So everything is basically Josie Sal, but social media is Josie Sal Music.
And so is it difficult, because you picked Black Velvet for this single, is it difficult picking a single?
Yes and no, because the way I'm kind of releasing them is kind of like based on the order I write them in.
Oh, okay.
I think that's the easiest way. If I had a pick, it would just be all of the fun songs.
Yeah.
Because those are like my favorites. Because I have a lot of upbeat ones, and then I have the ones that are like more serious, still fun, but they're more serious. So it's like a mix of both.
Well, thanks for giving us so much time. Best of luck, not only in your career, but also at Tootsie's, coming up closer than your whole career.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thanks for doing this, and best of luck. All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us.
You just have to get in the seat of a John Deere 1 Series tractor. Not because of how easy it is to use, or because of our expert dealers. Not even because it has implements for every job. You just have to get in the seat, because breaking ground on your dream home feels pretty great.
Right now at Lindsay Equipment, get up to $1,000 off and 0% financing for 60 months on all 2023 John Deere compact tractors in stock.
If you or one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer.
How do I know if I have a case?
Call 844-292-6222 and consult with one of our attorneys to find out if the products you used are part of the lawsuit. Your eligibility will also depend on how often you use these hair products and your specific cancer diagnosis. If you regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. Call 844-292-6222.
How much will it cost to talk to an attorney?
There is no fee unless we win your case. Call 844-292-6222 for your free case review.
Hesselsen's Hot Spring Hot Tub Sales Event is going on now. New technology, cleaner water, easy to use, hot water made simple. Hesselsen's, your locally owned and operated hot spring hot tub store since 1955, is offering huge incentives on their saltwater hot tubs. Deluxe lifters and steps, Bluetooth music, freshwater IQ, plus 0% interest-free financing options. Come to Hesselsen's today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselsen's Hot Spring Saltwater Hot Tub. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselsen's.
If you or one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer.
How do I know if I have a case?
Call 844-292-6222 and consult with one of our attorneys to find out if the products you used are part of the lawsuit. Your eligibility will also depend on how often you use these hair products and your specific cancer diagnosis. If you regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. Call 844-292-6222.
How much will it cost to talk to an attorney?
There is no fee unless we win your case. Call 844-292-6222 for your free case review.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you so much for joining us. I like that view. I'm receiving so many comments here. Yes, so thank you for, I'm glad that you enjoyed the interview. Great interview. She's definitely going places. I watched her video. Thank you for bringing the up-and-coming country singers on. It's partially why I'm in Tennessee. Well, Tennessee is a great place to be. Yes, we do have viewers from Tennessee. So thank you for watching, and thank you for the kind words about the interview. She did a great job. She's an up-and-comer for sure. Okay, another comment from a different viewer, obviously not about the interview. Technically, Vance should be much better in the debate. He's very clever and great diffuser of left attacks. The main hurdle will be if they gang up and if he falls for any of their bait. It will be an exciting event. And I forgot to mention this before we wrap up our first hour. Unbelievable how time flies when you're having fun. This was a comment that I received after yesterday's program. I forgot to mention it at the top of the hour. Hi, Frank. Quick comment regarding the separation of New York State from New York City. If this would hopefully happen, then there would be a good chance that New York State would turn red. Oh yeah, if you look at the map, it's all red except for, well, not all red. Rochester, Syracuse, and of course New York City, deep blue, and that's what makes the whole difference. And that's why I've admitted I'm jaded. I just don't feel that Trump can have a victory in New York. And also, if you look at the story we were bringing to you before our interview, I do believe Cuomo, if he runs for mayor, that he will win. Keep that in mind. Now, Mayor Hochul to the rescue. That's what the New York Post is asking. The governor may have to fill in as the city's de facto mayor. Governor Hochul will have a start. She'll have to start pulling double shifts, her day job and acting as New York City's de facto mayor. Adams' federal indictment last week on 5 counts, including bribery and wire fraud, has thrown City Hall into chaos. Anything or nothing might happen by the end of the year. Adams may stick it out and stay on the job as he proclaims his innocence, or he may resign, with his lawyers perhaps advising him that prosecutors may lose interest in a former mayor. Or Hochul may suspend him. She has the right to do so and start the process of removing him, which takes at least 30 days. In any case, New York is effectively and indefinitely mayorless. Jamon Williams, the city's lefty public advocate, would take over if Adams leaves. But Williams has never managed anything, says the New York Post. So there you go. There's a couple quick updates. We got to take a short break. When we come back, hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer.
How do I know if I have a case?
Call 844-292-6222 and consult with one of our attorneys to find out if the products you used are part of the lawsuit. Your eligibility will also depend on how often you use these hair products and your specific cancer diagnosis. If you regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. Call 844-292-6222.
How much will it cost to talk to an attorney?
There is no fee unless we win your case. Call 844-292-6222 for your free case review.
today.
The crowd, the atmosphere, this is what makes it special.
The student body are out of their mind. You want a piece of us?
This is what we do. Here we go. Touchdown.
And we are back. Yes, we are working on the roof cam. So now you get an insider look to the Frankly Speaking studio and my dying houseplants. And you got to see our engineer, Chris, who's now a fan favorite. Speaking of fan favorites, former Congressman Joe Semplinsky will be joining us on Thursday. I know he is a fan favorite. One thing that we have to talk about, of course, is the upcoming vice presidential debate. We had one viewer say that Vance should perform in a way that gives him the victory. I would think so too. If you look at, and I know he said it at a rally. I was watching one of the rallies from this weekend, and he was talking about going to the hostile media. And if there's anybody who, to that viewer's point, can diffuse kind of the attack lines, I think it's J.D. Vance. Now, will J.D. Vance fall kind of quote unquote for the bait like Trump did when it came to the last debate with Harris? The final debate is what it looks like. Time will tell. But I know that I thought he did a great job when it was asked, because he takes those questions at the end from the media, another hostile media group, and they were asking him about why Trump is quote unquote scared to debate. And he said to so many viewers' points, because I know you've brought this up numerous times last week and the week before, that he said, well, we offered to do it on Fox and she turned it down. She was scared of the Fox debate. And I think that's a line that they have to continue to push, because it is accurate, but it's also effective. Now, Kamala Harris has been receiving some criticism over the weekend for wearing a reported, get this, $62,000 necklace as she visited the southern border. The Democrat presidential nominee was snapped Friday at the southern border in Arizona, trying to look tough on one of her major political weaknesses as she walked near a razor wire protected fence in the town of Douglas, chatting with an agent from U.S. Border Patrol. Harris was wearing dark sunglasses, a brown jacket over a black top, and dark colored pants, and sporting what critics claim was a $62,000 necklace from Tiffany's. One Twitter user, ex-user, said Dems decided to send Kamala Harris out in a $62,000 Tiffany necklace to reassure the middle class that she was just a middle class person. Remember that's her big line. I grew up middle class, and that she has your best interest at heart. Maybe leave the $60,000 Tiffany necklace at home when visiting the border. Respectfully, you look ridiculous and thoroughly removed from what's right in front of your face. The photo op wasn't a total loss, though. They got a great shot of that necklace. Another thing, she's middle class, but sure does enjoy showing off her $62,000 Tiffany gold necklace. Okay, now there's quite a bit here. Let's go to the debate, top of the 7 o'clock hour. Oh, there's a couple waves coming in. There's been some interesting, before we go to the debate, there's been some interesting endorsements, right? Everybody was talking about the Taylor Swift endorsement of Kamala Harris. That was the big topic of the day, but the timing of it right after the debate, it's almost gotten lost in the news cycle. But there's quite a bit here about other stars that are either endorsing Trump or just not endorsing Harris, which is always newsworthy. So we're going to talk about that before, because we talked about it so extensively last week, and that was Kamala Harris's visit to the border. Tulsi Gabbard, who many people on this program were rooting for to be Donald Trump's vice president, if you recall. Well, Tulsi Gabbard, former Democrat, she was asked about this southern border photo op. She called it shameless and called it a photo op. Shameless, no other way to describe Kamala Harris's photo op at southern border, promising to secure it after allowing 10 plus million illegal aliens in the past 3.5 years as border czar. A shameless person feels no shame because they have no conscience. That's Kamala Harris. It was the strongest border security. Oh, this is Kamala Harris said this when she was at the border town. It was the strongest border security bill we have seen in decades. It was endorsed by the Border Patrol Union, and it should be in effect today, producing results in real time right now for our country. A closer look at some of what was in the bill does not make it look strong. Increased legal immigration to the United States, expedited work permits for migrants arriving at the southern border, permitted tens of thousands of border crossings every week before the Department of Homeland Security could clamp down on regions between ports of entry, codified the Biden-Harris administration's parole pipeline into federal law, provided taxpayer-funded lawyers to certain unaccompanied alien children and mentally incompetent migrants. That's an exact quote. So, again, Tulsi Gabbard criticizing. Now, Tulsi Gabbard was and is, I think, I don't know if she's helping J.D. Vance, but definitely helping Trump in that first debate, because Tulsi Gabbard really rose to fame with her attack at Kamala Harris in that debate. Now, Kamala Harris hosts a Las Vegas rally over the weekend and saying, "I pledge to you as president, I will fight for all Americans and we will build a better future together." Harris pledged a $50,000 tax cut for small businesses, stating that Latina small businesses are the backbone of the area's economy. Harris promised a $25,000 grant to first-time homebuyers and to construct 3 million new homes and a $6,000 tax credit for a child's first year of life. And what could become a first, Harris said she would drop a college degree requirement for many federal jobs, quote, "and I challenge you in the private sector to do the same." She blasted what she described as a Trump plan to cut Social Security and Medicare, leaving the audience in a chant of not going back, which is always quite strange when you think 12 of the last 16 years Democrats have controlled the White House. Harris has one of her slimmest leads in Nevada, a mere 1.5% over former President Donald Trump. And there's actually a poll that came out today that proves yet again what we said on the show so often, which is some people are concerned to tell pollsters who they support. And they're concerned that it could cost them family, friends, loved ones, jobs if they say they support Trump. So Trump historically polls lower than the actual voter turnout. But I'll continue. We have reason for hope, said Representative Dina Titus, Democrat from Nevada. She said there was more than 7,500 people packed into several sections of the World Expo Center. But we have to be a little afraid, she said. The turnout might also be a signal of why Titus spoke of being a little afraid. Almost exactly 2 weeks ago, ex-President Donald Trump drew more than 6,000 to the same venue, and the crowd waited patiently to hear the Republican nominee speak, even as he arrived more than an hour late due to the delays at previous stops. Economic issues dominate the election year discussion in the Silver State. Thousands of hospitality workers lost jobs during the pandemic, while the famed Las Vegas Strip is once again bustling. Working families are struggling. In August, the Congressional Joint Economic Committee said Nevada families are paying close to $1,200 a month or more to live under Biden-era inflation, nearly $100 above the national inflation cost average. Now, according to the New York Post, Hispanics are abandoning the Democratic Party, and that could put Trump back into the White House. Hispanic Americans have long been a bedrock of support for the Democrat Party. There are signs that's changing, and it could decide the election this November. Democrats have won the Hispanic vote in every presidential election since 1972, with the exception of 2004. Democratic nominees since 1992 had always beaten their Republican counterparts by at least 35 points with Hispanic voters. Hispanics are largely working class, and by 2020, they began to warm up to Donald Trump and his party. Joe Biden won Hispanics by only 23 points, 60-37. Data from the Democratic firm Catalyst show that was enough to shift Florida from a swing state to one that leaned Republican and boosted Trump in both Nevada and Arizona. All right, we're going to take a look at some of the endorsements. One is, this is interesting because every once in a while you see a celebrity and they really know what's probably going to affect their future employment. But they'll still come out and maybe not completely endorse Trump, but they won't support Harris. And if you recall, when Taylor Swift, before she made her endorsement, Vanity magazine, I think it was, or Variety, excuse me, I think it was Variety, said, all of her past support for Democrats would be null and void. None of it would matter if she doesn't endorse this time, kind of threatening her into another endorsement of, in this case, Harris. Now back last presidential cycle, she did endorse Biden-Harris. Now she endorsed Harris. And just 2 or 3 days after that piece came out by Variety. But Soprano star Dre DiMatteo, You may remember her as Adriana from The Sopranos. She told Fox Business, quote, "Hollywood is dead. The music industry is dead," and questioned the integrity of celebrities publicly claiming they support Vice President Harris in this election. I'm still a super liberal, so I feel it's time for us to come together, but a lot of people on the left are afraid. George Clooney, Meryl Streep, all these huge celebrities endorsing war, supporting Dick Cheney. I don't understand the inversion and how people flipped, unless they're under the gun, so to speak. I find it hard to believe that people like George Clooney or Meryl Streep don't actually know what's going on. I think that Hollywood is meaningless in all of this. I think the American dream is on hold. I feel like Hollywood is dead. The music industry is dead. There's no cultural, artistic movement speaking out about this. You don't see fine art. There's usually protest art about wars and censorship, and we're stagnant right now. I question their integrity right now, meaning the Harris-Walz campaign. I find that so interesting that that's the culture we're living in right now. We're hippies for humanity, and it's like, where did the hippies go? I don't understand where everybody disappeared to. We're trying to bridge the gap between the left and the right. I'm a liberal, and I could sit here with conservatives all day. At the very moment, all I care about is fighting for this country and just trying to wake up a few more of my fellow liberals to get back to the center of things and recognize that the things they always fought for, all the weaponization on the left, is camouflage. They're fighting for social issues that really don't matter when you look at the big picture of what's really happening behind the scenes. So not a full-throated endorsement necessarily of Trump, but highlighting the fact that the George Clooney's and the Meryl Streeps and the Taylor Swifts of the world are aligned with none other than Dick Cheney. Now, did you see over the weekend Hillary Clinton tweeted out that she expects an October surprise, saying, "I anticipate there'll be a full-court press in October. There will be concerted efforts to distort and pervert Kamala Harris, who she is, what she stands for, what she's done." Okay. Now, Tom Emmer, the representative from Minnesota, was on ABC this week. And he mentioned something that we've talked about in this program in the past, and it's kind of that fake folksiness of Tim Walz, Coach Walz. You know, I had mentioned on the program that at least with Biden, the malarkey thing, the come on man, yeah, maybe it became kind of obnoxious after a while, but you knew it was who he really was. It's how he really talked. With Walz, it seems all like an act. And that's what Emmer had to say, again, on ABC's This Week. Tim's been a complete disaster in Minnesota. And what's happened is he's so good at being this folksy, nice, kind of down-to-earth guy until people get to know him and his policies. Tim's been a complete disaster in Minnesota. And what's happened is he's good at being this folksy person. I don't know if you know this, but his whole congressional district, where he played this character for several years of being kind of a folksy, AG-friendly outdoorsman, he lost it in both of his gubernatorial races, and the last one almost by 10 points. He's not well-liked because once you get to know the real Tim Walz, he's like Gavin Newsom in a flannel shirt. I can tell you, he's got, and then he switches to Trump. This again, Tom Emmer's, saying about Trump and then about J.D. Vance. I can tell you he's got the issues on his side in reference to the debate coming up tomorrow between Vance and Walz. So Vance has got the issues on his side. He can talk about the economy that Donald Trump fixed and that Harris and Biden broke. He can talk about the border that Trump fixed and they broke. He can talk about peace and stability around the world, which they don't even have a clue. They've caused all this disruption. And once he understands that Tim Walz is just going to try and deflect and go into that folksy whatever, he'll hold him accountable. I think JD can do a great job. We got to take a short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
If there's one thing we like, it's choices. And your Ford dealer is the place to start. With a full lineup of vehicles and available powertrains. Get your ideal combination of power and capability with gas, hybrid, or all electric. But more important than the power you choose is what you choose to do with it.
Right now, Returning lessees can lease a Ford F-150 for $299 a month for 24 months, only at your local Ford stores.
Now there's a product that sears food, stirs it, even shreds it for you. Introducing the Power Excel StirMax Multi-Cooker with a built-in auto stirrer that gives you the freedom of adding your ingredients and walking away and coming back to meals that cook up to 60% faster. No more stirring food. StirMax technology automatically rotates the paddle clockwise, then counterclockwise, so it stirs it for you. Powerful enough to even shred food. Then the 7.5 quart pot goes right to the table to serve. With a premium ceramic coating, nothing sticks. And it's dishwasher safe. Now you can try the Power Excel StirMax Multi-Cooker with lid and recipe guide in your home for 30 days for just $14.99. You also get the steamer and rice basket for healthy meals, StirMax serving spoon that snaps in place for easy serving, and $100 in free grocery coupons. We'll even ship your order all absolutely free. This is an exclusive TV-only offer, so order now.
And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Comment from Ken. Frank, sitting here pondering how Vance and Walz will do during the debate. It is clear that Vance is the better debater, and we have seen him in quite a few interviews, pressers, and rallies. He seems responsible and quick on his feet. Walz has been in a couple of interviews and rallies. He is always over-animated and loud. I don't think he knows that Harris has been in the White House for almost 4 years. But I must admit, if I wanted my air cleaner changed, Walz would be my man. All right, that's fair. The legacy media will obviously spin the debate to claim Walz was the winner. Can you imagine how the election would be different if the legacy media was honest and unbiased? Yes, it would be. I mean, just watching Tom Cotton over the weekend, and then when J.D. Vance does these interviews, and they're so hostile, so full of anger and hate for the person that they're interviewing. And then, of course, we've talked about the debate over and over again with the fact-checking from the moderators just for Trump, not, of course, for Harris. Now, we talked about some of the endorsements. The New Yorker endorsed Kamala Harris, but while endorsing Harris, basically just attacked Biden the whole time. Talk about insult to injury for Biden at this point. The magazine heaped praise on Harris for displaying, quote, the basic values and political skills to defeat Trump in a lengthy endorsement, but not before scolding President Biden for standing in her way. Quote, it was hardly a secret that Biden has aged, growing markedly less robust, particularly in the past 18 months or so. If he got through an interview or a rare press conference without incident, staff and supporters exhaled and treated it as a victory. I like how obviously. Well, did the New Yorker report on it at the time? Or was that still part of the well-kept secret? But rather than open the gate to a younger generation of Democrat candidates, Biden, his advisors, and the party leadership stood in the way. They made it plain that a challenger would inevitably be defeated. Meanwhile, through spin and deft scheduling, the White House staff protected the president and hoped for the best. Tens of millions of voters, fearing another Trump presidency, had little choice but to close their eyes and think of America. The editor wrote that the infamous debate, which led to the end of Biden's re-election bid, broadcast to the world the extent of his disintegration. Viewed more coldly, it was a gift. Had it taken place, say, after the conventions, it might have been too late to force a reassessment. Trump said, I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. By Trumpian standards, this was kindness. It was also the end of the Biden candidacy. There's every reason to think that Trump 2 would be far worse than Trump 1. Harris, they wrote, has got the vibes, as this year's cliche has it, but the race remains very close. In both 2016 and 2020, Trump outperformed the polls. No responsible assessment of the contest has the luxury of focusing only on the imperatives for a Harris administration and gliding past the ramifications of another Trump administration. Again, this coming from the New Yorker. Watching Thursday's debate, observing Biden wander into senseless out on stage senselessness on stage was an agonizing experience, and it's bound to obliterate forever all those vague and qualified descriptions from White House insiders about good days and bad days. They wrote at the time. You watched it, and on the most basic human level, you could only feel pity for the man and more fear for the country. So there you are. That's the New Yorker's endorsement of Harris. Another endorsement, remember this name, former senator from Arizona, Jeff Flake. He was on ABC's This Week, and host Martha Raddatz said, "You broke some news this morning on X announcing that you will support and endorse Kamala Harris. Why not? Why now?" Flake said, "Well, I couldn't do it much before, obviously, as ambassador. You can't participate in partisan politics, but I'm certainly happy to do so now. Well, I think Republicans believe in the rule of law in particular, and it's difficult to support a candidate who, having lost an election, tries to use the powers of the presidency to overturn that election. That is anything but respect for the rule of law. So I know that a lot of conservative Republicans feel the same way I do, that you just can't support a candidate like that. With regard to tariffs as well, there are reasons to impose tariffs, but to pretend that we're going to get a windfall of money from some foreign government because we're imposing tariffs just doesn't jive with what and where conservatives have been on free trade. Vice President Harris can win Arizona. I think she's gaining here, so I think she ought to court all voters. I do believe that that includes moderate Republicans and conservative Republicans who believe in the rule of law and limited government to economic freedom and individual responsibility. She ought to court everyone, and I think she'll do well here." So that's a blast from the past, Jeff Flake. We've got a few other endorsements. Stay with us. We got to take a short break, and then we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Stay with us.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Now there's a product that sears food, stirs it, even shreds it for you. Introducing the PowerXL StirMax Multi-Cooker with a built-in auto stirrer that gives you the freedom of adding your ingredients and walking away and coming back to meals that cook up to 60% faster. No more stirring food. StirMax technology automatically rotates the paddle clockwise, then counterclockwise, so it stirs it for you. Powerful enough to even shred food. Then the 7.5 quart pot goes right to the table to serve. With a premium ceramic coating, nothing sticks. And it's dishwasher safe. Now you can try the PowerXL StirMax Multi-Cooker with lid and recipe guide in your home for 30 days for just $14.99. You also get the steamer and rice basket for healthy meals, StirMax serving spoon that snaps in place for easy serving, and $100 in free grocery coupons. We'll even ship your order all absolutely free. This is an exclusive TV-only offer, so order now.
The Fox Sports app isn't just any sports app. It's your sports app. Yeah, yours. Your teams. Your highlights. Your scores. Your stories. Just choose your favorites to get more of what you want.
To the end zone!
And of course, stream your teams live. The best part is free with your pay TV subscription.
And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. I'm your host, Frank Hagum. Thanks so much for joining us. Lindsey Graham over the weekend was on CNN's State of the Union discussing former President Donald Trump's rhetoric. Host Jake Tapper said, quote, "So first of all, there are actual people out there with mental impairments, and that's insulting to them. Second of all, Vice President Kamala Harris is not mentally impaired." So Lindsey Graham said, "I just think she's crazy liberal. I just think the better course to take has to prosecute the case that her policies are destroying the country. They're crazy liberal. The man who killed Laken Riley in Georgia was released by the Biden and Harris administration on parole because they had no capacity at the border to hold him. That's not a reason to parole people. I promise you, there are women being raped and murdered, people that are hurt by illegal immigrants released in this country without detention. It is a nightmare. It is crazy. It is crazy to boycott a speech by the Prime Minister of Israel to a joint session of Congress, thinking it won't embolden Iran. It was crazy to withdraw from Afghanistan, hoping things would be different this time. Medicare for all, Green New Deal, crazy stuff. I'm not saying she's crazy to stay in your to state your party's policies, but they are, I can't use the word he used, and then crazy. Now, J.D. Vance, there was some so many comments. I have not mentioned, thank you for this comment. Did Frank say anything about the ports possibly shutting down after midnight tonight? No, and I'm glad that you mentioned that. That was a part that's in my stack of news. Talk about, my goodness. Obviously, we've talked about supply chain disruptions in the past and how important it is to kind of get these supply chains in order. Well, roughly 45,000 dock workers at 36 ports on the East and Gulf Coast could go on strike as soon as 12:01 a.m. tomorrow if they cannot come up with a new contract. The damage of closing the ports that handle an estimated 60% of U.S. shipping traffic would be devastating and widespread across economic sectors, from retail to automobiles to produce. J.P. Morgan says a work stoppage could cause $5 billion in economic damage to the U.S. per day. Freight costs for businesses have already risen up to 20% in anticipation of the strike, and the increases will likely be passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices on store shelves. Of course, they will be passed on to consumers. So the International Longshoremen's Association, the union that represents the dock workers at East and Gulf Coast ports, is reportedly holding firm on a 77% pay increase over 6 years. Workers would point out that wages for veteran dock workers have increased 11% since the start of the last 6-year contract, while inflation has jumped 24% in the same period. The top wage for union dock workers is $39 an hour. Yes, this is going to be a major issue. Of course, something we'll talk about even more extensively tomorrow. Okay. Oh, here's breaking news, folks. Breaking news coming right over the wire as we speak. New York State Senator and attorney Tom O'Mara recently announced his endorsement of current acting family and county court judge Matt McCarthy. O'Mara stated, quote, "I'm proud to endorse Judge McCarthy for the position of Steuben County and Family Court Judge. Judge McCarthy has been doing this job in addition to his role as Corning City Court Judge for the last 10 years, including making sure victims had access to justice during the 2020 lockdown. As an attorney, I can speak to the necessity of having someone qualified, experienced, and reliable in this role. The only candidate that meets those qualifications is Judge McCarthy. Judge McCarthy has an excellent reputation and overwhelming support from attorneys and those who rely on the court system running effectively. Being a lifelong resident of Steuben County, he understands the values that makes our community strong and the difficulties facing our families. I'm confident he will continue to administer justice impartially on behalf of all the residents of Steuben County." So this just in, breaking news. New York State Senator Tom O'Mara supporting Judge Matthew McCarthy for his candidacy for Steuben County and Family Court Judge. Okay. How are we doing on time? We're doing good. Glad I checked my email. Yeah, so the port issue is going to be a major issue, something we'll talk about more in depth on tomorrow's program. Here's a comment from a viewer. Frank, your plants are obviously suffering under the Biden economy. Another reason to vote for Trump. Make plants great again. Yes, I didn't realize you were going to have that angle this morning. And the plants aren't doing too bad, but they've seen better days. So I appreciate that. That's funny. J.D. Vance over the weekend at that Pennsylvania restaurant kind of spiraled into chaos, if you will, with Kamala Harris even doubling down on what happened. Pennsylvania favorite Promonti Brothers is scrambling to avoid blowback after turning away J.D. Vance when he tried to make a campaign stop on Saturday. The Ohio senator was initially stopped at the door of the shop Saturday afternoon while attempting to make a campaign stop, as staff said they were not given advance notice. A manager of the store initially turned the campaign away, despite dozens of people waiting inside for a chance to meet the candidate. After being turned away, At the door, Vance addressed disappointed and outraged supporters in a video posted by an attendee. The manager just freaked out a little bit because there were a lot of people, and she didn't want to make her restaurant part of a campaign stop. We went in there. We paid for everyone's food. We gave them a nice tip. And, of course, when I gave them a nice tip, I said no taxes on tip. The junior senator from Ohio also made clear that Primanti Brothers is still on his good side and attempted to shield the small business from any ire, kind of showing the class act that J.D. Vance is. It's all right. Don't hold it against her. She just got a little nervous. But it's a great local business. Keep on supporting it. And most importantly, on November 5th, go vote. Let's go win this thing. Now, the restaurant did release a statement. Our doors are open to all patrons who wish to dine with us. Without any advance notice, today's campaign stop caused some momentary confusion for our staff. However, Senator Vance and his team were welcomed into our restaurant shortly after and engaged with our guests inside and on the property. Now, Kamala Harris is fond of saying that Donald Trump is only in it for himself, not the American people. Well, this weekend we saw in a picture-perfect example of psychological projection, Harris throwing a small business under the bus for her own supposed political gain. This coming from David Marcus at Fox News. On Saturday, J.D. Vance tried to drop into that restaurant only to be barred from entering. This came much to the disappointment of waiting voters, some of whom angrily recorded the events on their phones. They left, canceled their orders. Threats of boycotts were made. And Vance has caused to be a little miffed. But Trump's running mate graciously forgave the snub while greeting fans in the parking lot, paying for the crowd's meals with a generous tip. The store released a statement saying he was welcome and that their employees had just been surprised by the cameras. On Sunday, Harris's campaign posted a video on X showing Harris being welcomed as a hero in Primanti Brothers back in August. The message was clear as it was ugly. Unlike Republicans, Democrats are welcome in polite society. Let's set to one side the fact that Harris's appearance at the Steel City Staple this summer was met by widespread mockery when it was discovered her campaign had kicked out actual diners and bussed in supporters to set the fraudulent scene. That's bad enough. But what Harris was wrought here isn't the disingenuous papering of the House in a political event. She is doing more real harm to the Primanti Brothers to walk this situation back and make clear to everyone of every political stripe that they're welcome there. That was the point Vance was trying to make when he spoke out after being denied entry. That is classy. It was a classy way to handle it. It is what generations of Americans have expected from our leaders. Primanti's brothers confirmed that what had happened and said that they were moving on. But no, not for Harris, the me girl around whom all things must revolve. It didn't matter to Harris that the matter had been settled, that calls for boycotting the restaurant were dying down, or that people were ready to move on to more serious matters. No, the Vice President of the United States had to spike the football on X over the AstroTurf event at the Greasy Spoon, even if it meant hurting the business. You see, Harris winning is more important than any individual small business. And it was done in such an obnoxious way. Does Harris really want all of our businesses segregated by the politics of the customers? How ghastly. It brought me back to a conversation I had with a woman in San Francisco recently. She was a lifelong resident who had followed Harris's rise. Quote, she doesn't seem to believe in much, and the word is she isn't very nice, she told me. This echoes similar voices in Pennsylvania who told me that they just don't know who she is. Or more common, I think she'll say anything to get elected. Harris keeps insisting that she's a candidate who is selflessly in this race for the sake of the American people, while Trump only cares about Trump. But when has Harris ever done anything selflessly or not on the public dime? When in her career has she taken a back seat for the good of the people? She certainly isn't doing so by extending the conversation and misery surrounding Primanti Brothers, which wants nothing more than for this whole story to go away. The brutal fact is that the only moral compass Harris and her campaign have is set squarely on a North Star of victory, not helping actual people, even if they think that might get around to that part eventually. In the meantime, much like the busted participants in her event at the Primanti Brothers, we're all just extras in Kamala's excellent adventure. That's David Marcus from Fox News. So the week ahead, here we are. Tomorrow is the big day. When we come back, we are going to talk about the vice presidential debate, what looks to be the last debate in the election season. What are we down to? 34 days, I think, which is just startling. 34 days until the election. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
Oh, better tasting is better for the planet.
That's great, sir. Can I take your order?
Oh, number 3.
At Culligan, we get that most people don't think about water like we do, and that's okay. You see, when we install our drinking water and softening systems, we're thinking about filtering contaminants and the minerals that make water hard. So you can just think about softer, cleaner, better tasting water. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
I'm Mary. I've lived here for 70 years, but I do fine right here in my house, and I want to be here as long as I can be. And I feel comfortable knowing that if something happened to me, someone would know because of the cameras that are installed in various spots in my home. That has been a wonderful gift to me to be able to have that security and that support from Full Circle America, and that's what it's all about.
Your first homicide, kid? You get used to it.
Every Tuesday,
Chief, we've got a dead body.
murder in a small town will keep you guessing.
How'd you even notice that?
Don't miss the show critics love.
We don't see the world the same way.
Something you'd like to tell me? You don't frighten me.
Big picture first,
Then details.
You're very good at the steely gaze.
Shouldn't you be looking for killers?
Duty calls.
Tomorrow. And we are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us. A couple comments here from viewers. Morning, Frank. Good morning. Is there some place or any place where a person can find out exactly who and how much money is being contributed to the Harris campaign? Not that I'm familiar with. I know that they have to report on what is being donated, but I don't think they have to have small dollar amounts, the people's actual names. Not that I'm aware of, but I know there is some different sources that will show who donors are, but I'm not sure how up to date it is. I will try to find out more on that for you. Next up, regarding the possibility of a strike, Biden and Harris are not expected to do anything to avert said strike, right? I think it was a statement was either released or Biden was giving an interview where he said he would not interfere with the strike. So that could be very detrimental to the economy and the supply chain. Okay, so what to know about the vice presidential debate? It is tomorrow, just a little over a month from Election Day. Some states have already actually cast their votes. They already have early voting has begun. The Walz-Vance showdown could likely be the last major televised debate of this election cycle. And the mics, this is important, and the mics will not be muted if all goes as planned. A large segment of voters are planning to cast ballots ahead of Election Day, with early voting already launched in a handful of states, including Minnesota. Both candidates agreed to this debate back in August, but again, the mics will not be muted, so that's about the only rule change from the presidential debate. In the first 59 days after Vice President Kamala Harris entered the race, Vance has become a familiar face, giving more than 7 times more interviews and press conferences than Walz and Harris combined. Well, that's easy because Walz and Harris have given 0 press conferences. They have done some interviews, but 0 press conferences. So 7 times more interviews and press conferences. They shouldn't even have press conferences in there because, again, Harris has not held a single one. In that time, Walz has also boosted the Harris campaign with an aura of authenticity as a running mate. He rose to national prominence by casting Vance and other Republicans as, quote, weird in many television appearances. Vance has deemed the label schoolyard bully stuff on CNN. The Republican senator, who served as a public affairs specialist in the Marines, has taken shots at Walz' military record, accusing the 24-year Army National Guard veteran of misrepresenting his service record. Walz says, quote, speaks for itself. Now, the 90-minute debate, yes, 90 minutes, and it's at 9 p.m. tomorrow. It will be held in New York City. Now, Pete Buttigieg has been apparently helping Walz prepare for the debate. It is being led by White House alums Robert Friedlander and Zain Sadiq, also part of the Harris debate room. The debate prep team also includes Chris Smiter, the aide who led Walz's gubernatorial races, longtime Obama-Biden aide Liz Allen, and Harris-Walz communications director Michael Tyler. House GOP whip Tom Emmer, who we mentioned earlier in the program, is playing the part of Walz in GOP prep for Vance. Emmer has been studying up on how Walz debates, his positions, and his physical mannerisms. Now, Walz will stand behind a podium on the right side of the screen with Vance to the opposite side, per debate rules. There will not be an opening statement, and Walz will be introduced first. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer questions, with the other candidates given 2 minutes to respond. They will each have 1 additional minute for rebuttals. Moderators, the only ones permitted to ask questions, will be able to decide whether to give the candidate another minute per the rule. Can you see how maybe that might go wrong? Candidates will have 2 minutes for closing statements. Vance won a coin toss determining order and opted to go last, much like Trump during the presidential debate. Although there are no plans to mute mics, CBS News has reserved the right to change that plan. Now, Vance on Wednesday during a press call said what we're going to focus on is that I make a conscious and direct appeal to the American people as possible about Donald Trump's successful policies and Kamala Harris's failed policies. Walz called Vance a Yale law guy, which is really interesting. They're going after Ivy League schools now, isn't it? But called him a Yale law guy and himself a public school teacher. He said the debate is a good opportunity to contrast where we're at. You'll hear me talk like I have about things that impact Americans. Make sure they have the opportunity to thrive, making sure they're being factual in how we talk about that. And so I'm looking forward to it. I'll work hard. That's what I do. Emily Soong, a spokesperson for the Harris-Walz campaign, said the debate is an opportunity for Walz to present Harris's vision to the American people who are ready to, quote, turn the page on Donald Trump. Now, this does look like the last debate. Now, CNN did invite both Trump and Harris to a debate on October 23rd, but Trump has declined, so I'm not sure if they'll give her a town hall, but it does look like the last debate of this cycle. Now, we got to take a short break. Stay with us. 34 days. I was right. It's 34 days until the election. The rules, again, tomorrow, similar to the 2 presidential debates, except for one, microphones will not be muted when the candidates are speaking. And both candidates will stand, marking the first time since Joe Biden and Sarah Palin faced off in 2008 that VP debate participants won't be sitting down. So that's interesting. What do you think? What are your expectations for tomorrow night's debate? I know J.D. Vance has been giving a lot of interviews in what you would call hostile outlets, where they fact check him or they go after. I mean, I don't know if you saw the rally from this weekend, but he always takes questions at the end from reporters. It was everything you would expect. It was all the supposed quote-unquote gotcha questions, and he did a very good job of getting his way out of them. I'll be curious how that all plays out tomorrow. He seems ready for this scenario. It'll be interesting to watch. Now, I also saw over the weekend, just quickly, that Trump received a hero's welcome, if you will, at the Alabama-Georgia football game. Trump's guests included Kid Rock, Hank Williams Jr., John Daly, Senator Tommy Tuberville, Senator Steve Daines, and Senator Katie Britt. When he came up on the screen, on the big screen, people started chanting USA. 4 more years, they started chanting. Did not go the same for Coach Walz. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz was booed outside of a college football game between the University of Michigan and the University of Minnesota. One of the videos has some people using some colorful language that we will not repeat. Walz's attendance at the game comes to the same day that former President Donald Trump is set to attend, as we had mentioned, the college football game between Georgia and Alabama. All right, let's take that short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. There's
Hustleson, high Hot Spring Hot Tub sales event is going on now. New technology, cleaner water, easy to use, hot water made simple. Hesselson's, your locally owned and operated Hot Spring Hot Tub store since 1955, is offering huge incentives on their saltwater hot tubs. Deluxe lifters and steps, Bluetooth music, freshwater IQ, plus 0% interest-free financing options. Come to Hesselson today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselson's Hot Spring saltwater hot tub. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer.
How do I know if I have a case?
Call 844-292-6222 and consult with one of our attorneys to find out if the products you used are part of the lawsuit. Your eligibility will also depend on how often you use these hair products and your specific cancer diagnosis. If you regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. Call 844-292-6222.
How much will it cost to talk to an attorney?
There is no fee unless we win your case. Call 844-292-6222 for your free case review.
And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us. So CNN takes a look at Walz's and Vance's past debate performances to give us an idea of what to expect. Again, it's with CNN, so take it with a grain of salt, but saying it's an unusual twist of fate for Walz and Vance, whose selections over this summer thrust them into an intense political spotlight. A few months ago, Walz was a little-known Democratic governor and former six-term congressman who emerged as an unexpected contender as Harris's running mate. A review of several past general elections and primary debates for Vance and Walz yields a picture of two candidates with specific approaches to their previous performances, which could be instructive for this high-stakes moment. We're talking two candidates from relative obscurity to a national platform, basically overnight, to introduce themselves to the American public and also act as the closing act for their candidates and their parties, since there will be no more presidential debates scheduled. Walz and Vance, both Midwesterners, share some similarities. Past debate footage reveals that both generally veer away from personal attacks and prefer loftier rhetoric to digging deeply into specific facts to establish policy credibility. Their past debate opponents said that they didn't always provide direct answers to the question. I think that can be said about any debate. Both Vance and Walz have proved to be steadfast in debates as well. In previous showdowns, Vance was acknowledged his early criticism of Trump, but also argued that his past opposition was not disqualifying and that his support of the former president was ironclad. In the early years after the Affordable Care Act, which signed into law but still lacked broader public support, Walz staunchly defended his vote for the measure, even when the stance cut against his image as a political moderate, which I don't think too many people believe him to be a political moderate. Now, Vance does, on paper, have less debate experience, but everybody else kind of has a narrative that they have the same answers to every question. JD has the intellectual capability of actually assessing questions as it's asked and coming up with an answer that, in my view, 99% of the time reflects the truth, said Ohio Republican Michael Gibbons, a longtime advisor, saying JD loves debating. So this is going to be really the last showdown before November 5th, and of course, early voting already happening in many states. We've got more to talk about with this. We got to take another break and start wrapping things up here on Frankly Speaking. But what is your thoughts about the vice presidential debate? What do you see in tomorrow's candidates? Which direction they'll go? You know that Vance seems to keep his head about him, keep calm, especially in situations like we mentioned in Pennsylvania, where he was essentially kicked out of the diner, or when the media asks him really unfair gotcha type questions at the end of the rallies. Seems to be able to keep his head about him. I don't know enough about Walz's performance because obviously he has not been doing press conferences. Him and Harris aren't doing press conferences. Did see that interview with him and Harris, of course, with CNN. Really, that's all I can think of that I've seen him at. So what are your thoughts? What do you expect from tomorrow's debate? Now, I'm just looking at the time. I don't want to run too late here. Oh, yeah, I've got a couple of things here on polls when we come back. And one other endorsement, this time an endorsement for Trump. We'll talk about that when we come back as well. As I mentioned earlier in the program, former Congressman Joe Semplinsky will be our guest on Thursday. We also have judicial candidates on, I believe, Wednesday and Friday. But Joe Semplinsky will be on the program on Thursday. So if you have any questions for him, please feel free to reach out at any time. That number on the bottom of your screen is 24/7. And that's why very often when we kick off the program, we start with your comments. Oh, look, getting some last-minute waves in. There we go. I appreciate that. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back after this quick commercial break.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Y'all got a lot of stuff here in your water.
You're never gonna believe it, but this can filter up to 60 different contaminants from your water.
It's all about cleaner drinking water.
Dude, that's good water.
And that's good water.
Now that's good water.
That's good water, eh?
No matter where you live, there's a Culligan water expert nearby. At Culligan, we think about your water so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income.
And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street Corning. I'm your host, Frank Akam, getting ready to wrap things up on this morning's edition. So get your last minute comments in. It's hard to believe how fast this show goes. Now, there's an actor, Zachary Levy, or Levy. I believe it's Levy. He was at an event in Michigan. He's a star of Shazam. And this is surprising because it's so rare for a Hollywood celebrity to endorse a Republican. He revealed his pick for president while moderating an event with former presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard. He said, in a perfect world, and whatever that would look like, perhaps I would have voted for Bobby. But we don't live in a perfect world. In fact, we live in a very broken one. We live in a country that has been hijacked by a lot of people who want to take this place way off the cliff. And we're here to stop that. He added that he grew up in a Christian conservative family and his parents taught him to, quote, have a healthy level of distrust of the government, and that Kennedy is the real deal. We are going to take back this country. We are going to make it great again. We're going to make it healthy again. And so I stand with Bobby and I stand with everyone else who is standing with President Trump. Of the two choices that we have, and we only have two, President Trump is the man that can get us there. Well, that's probably the end of his Hollywood career as we know it, but definitely worth mentioning. Now, more Americans are identifying as Republicans and Democrats for the first time in decades. A new Gallup poll reveals that not only do 48% of respondents say they either identify as Republican or as leaning Republican for the upcoming election, compared to just 45% who identified as Democrats. Gallup analysts also said that nearly all measures that have shown some relationship to past presidential election outcomes are favoring the GOP as well. By 46% to 41%, Americans say the Republican Party is better able than the Democratic Party to address what they think is the most important problems facing the country. The top issues Americans currently name as the most important are ones that tend to favor the GOP, including the economy, 24%, immigration, 22%, the government, 17%, and inflation, 15%. Now, most Americans, and I mentioned this at the beginning of the program, most Americans are hesitant to share their honest opinions on key political issues. According to a social pressure index, Populist CEO Todd Rose found a staggering 61% of Americans admitted to self-silencing, self-censoring their true beliefs. And this is why so often we've talked about former President Trump ends up doing better than the polls show. Populace, a Massachusetts-based think tank focused on understanding people's private views and values rather than what they're saying publicly, recently unveiled its first social pressure index. The finding indicates that Americans don't trust the government or the media and are hesitant to publicly admit their true feelings on a variety of key issues. This could be critical with the presidential election looming, as many Americans feel pressure to support a specific candidate or issue publicly, but won't necessarily vote that way in private. We've talked about this on the program numerous times, where it does boil down to you may not want to lose family, friends, loved ones, your job, so you won't say which direction you actually want to vote. But when you get into that ballot box, it's a little bit different. I think it's going to be really fascinating to see what happens on election night. I will also say I think people are going to be surprised, not just about presidential elections, but about some of the ballot initiatives and things that are going to play out very different than public opinion might suggest. Rose said polling isn't bad, but it's flawed because Americans aren't honest about their personal views. Quote, polling assumes you're telling the truth, and we're not, Rose said, knowing that he began private opinion research after Trump's victory over Hillary back in 2016. A staggering 61% of Americans admitted to self-silencing their true beliefs, and 58% of Americans believe most people cannot share their honest opinions about sensitive topics, even if they believe they are correct, according to a study. Rose said the Social Pressure Index was the largest private opinion study ever conducted. And it's both acknowledges societal pressures to have the quote-unquote right opinion, and also there was that pressure that impacts what Americans are willing to say out loud. That is the idea of the self-censorship that we talk so much about. For example, they noted that the study found that for a while, the defund the police appeared to be supported by the majority of Democrats, but only 3% of Democrats support it privately. I don't think we would have gone down that road of some of the stuff in Seattle and other things had we known it was just 3%. And we're seeing similar things like that right now. For example, Americans writ large publicly say they think unions are good for the economy. In private, they don't believe it. The good news is when you get past what we're saying publicly to what we privately believe, I was shocked at the extent of the common ground we have as Americans. On 2/3 of the issues, almost every single demographic in this country agrees and is on the same page. So very much confirming what we've said on this program. Here's a comment from a viewer before we wrap up today's edition. I'm so disillusioned by the process, and to think Harris can be even considered to be a serious candidate, not to mention a real contender, makes me want to give up, like so many others I've talked to. I won't, of course, but it seems like a farce. I know a lot of people saying, why not a single vote for the job that she's running for? So I can understand maybe that anger. Now, the New York Post has an opinion piece, and we don't have time for it, but if you have an opportunity, it says the House should stay red in 2024 to keep the executive branch in line. No one expects the Empire State to decide the presidential race, but when it comes to the House, this is a swing state. In this crucial way, the nation's future is in New York voters' hands. How about that? Another piece by Miranda Devine that we didn't have an opportunity to get to this morning. Democrats can only escape Kamala Harris's woeful record by censoring bad news of the administration's failures. All right, we are out of time for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you to everyone who joined us. Thanks for joining us on Monday morning. Tomorrow, we'll be talking a lot about the vice presidential debate. Of course, we'll be reading your comments, waiting for your waves. Thanks, everybody. Wave. Thanks for all the comments this morning. And please join us tomorrow morning starting at 6 a.m. and every weekday morning starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking. Only on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Have a great day, everyone, and we will see you tomorrow morning, bright and early. I look forward to it already.